Okay, so this is the number revision paper 2. So this is one where you are allowed to use calculator. Bonus question for number was finding lowest common multiples, highest common factor, which is a grade B skill, but maybe something that you find accessible. So let's work our way through this paper. Calculate 72%, just zoom in a little bit there, of $563. So 72%, you can use the percentage button on your calculator. If I just get a bit more light going. It's better. So the percentage button is above the open bracket. So you could type this pretty much as 72% of, you need to know, there's no of button in the calculator, you use the times 563. So you type in 52, shift bracket to get the percent, times 563, and it's in dollars, so we can get it to 2 decimal places. So $292.76. If you don't like using the percentage button, then you will have either been taught to turn it into a decimal and then 0.72 times 563 will give you the same thing. Hang on. Oh, strange. Don't know what I did the first time. So 72% times 563 is 40536. Just as well, I showed you an extra method there. So just check that again. So that's 0.72, 0.72 times 563, 40536. Or you might have been taught to write it as a fraction, 72 over 100 times 563, and again there's the answer that you're looking for. So whichever method you're comfortable with, that's the one you stick with. Part B, 5/8 of, well, 5/8 of when you calculate it, you use multiply. You can type that into your calculator exactly as you see it using the fraction button there. So 5/8 times 150. SD to turn it into a decimal. 93.75. It's important you've read the question carefully. They want that to the nearest whole number. So your answer is either going to be 93 or 94, because it's somewhere in between, and hopefully you're comfortable that 0.75 means it's closest to 94. How many fifths are there in 8? Well, hopefully you will recognize that there's 5 fifths in 1. So in 2 there'd be 10. So in 8 there would be 5/8, 40. If you wanted to do that mathematically, what that's actually saying is how many fifths are there in 8? You're doing 8 divided by a fifth, which you could do on your calculator. And it'll give you the same answer as 40. But it is one that you can just logically work out by thinking, well, how many fifths are there in 1 whole? So if that was how many sevenths, there'd be 7 in 1, so there'd be 14 in 2, and so on and so on. What percentage is equal to a half of a half? Well, a half of a half means that a half of a half. That's the same as a quarter. You could do it on a calculator if you wanted to. And hopefully you know that a quarter as a percentage is 25%. Part E. Complete the following table. The fraction must be expressed in its simplest form. So 0.15, that's tenths, that's hundredths. So that's the same as 15 over 100. Yeah, just like, so if you think of your place value scale, you have your decimal point, then you have 10, 100, thousands. Going this way, you have tenths, then hundredths. So 0.15 takes you into the 15 hundredths. Fraction must be expressed in its simplest form. Well, that's easy because this is a calculator allowed paper. So if we do 15 over 100, press equals 3 out of 20. Is it recurring or terminating? Well, if we turn it into a decimal, we can see there that it terminates. It's just 0.15. So terminates. A recurring decimal would be one which, like 0.333333, goes on forever, or that one, and the dot tells you that it's recurring, 0.66666666. So 7 over 11, I can plug that into my calculator. Fraction 7 over 11. So as a decimal, you can see there by pressing the SD, it turns it into that, and you can see the little dots there are telling us that that repeats. So 0.63, and you can see there by pressing it again what's happening. It's 6363636363. The fact that that's a 4 at the end there is just a rounding because that's what the calculator does. But you can see there those dots are telling you that it recurs. So recurring. Using only the numbers in the following list. Write down a prime number, a cube number, a factor of 186, a multiple of 7.25. So, as far as prime numbers are concerned, we know that 2 is the only even prime number, so I can knock out all the even numbers, and also multiples of 5, so I can knock out that. So from a prime number point of view, I've got to worry about those ones. My 7 times table I know, so I know 9 sevens is 63, which takes that one out. These ones don't crop up in my times tables, but I'm not so sure. So what we do is we start with 57 and we work our way up, dividing by prime numbers. So 3 is the first, 5, 7, 11, and so on. So if I do 57 divided by 3, it goes in exactly. So that's not a prime number. So now I've got a choice of 2. 59 divided by 3, not whole. 59 divided by 5, not whole. 59 divided by 7, not whole. 59 divided by 11, not whole. Divided by 13, and so on. And 59 and 61, as it happens, are both prime numbers. So once you've rattled through dividing by so many primes, you'll quickly establish that 59 is a prime, or if you'd have chosen 61, that would have been correct as well. For a cube number is what you get if you multiply something by itself 3 times. So on your calculator you will have a cubed button. So if you do 2 cubed, you get 8, 3 cubed, 27, 4 cubed, you can see they rise quite quickly, is 64. 64 is in the list, so 64 is a cube number. A factor of 186. So what we do now is we divide these numbers into 186 until the output is a whole number. That gives us a pair of factors that will multiply to give 186. So 186 divided by 57, no. 186 divided by 58, no. 186 divided by 59, no. 186 divided by 60, no. No. Divided by 62, yes. So 62 is a factor of 186 because it divides in exactly. And then we do the same thing here. If we divide 7.25 in until we get a whole number, then that will give us the multiple. So we go back to the start, 57 divided by 7.25, not the whole number. 58 divided by 7.25 is a whole number. So if we multiply that by 8, we would get 58. So it's a bit of a pain, that question, because you just literally search using your calculator to search to find the numbers from the list. Evaluate 56% of 800 plus 5/12 of 288. So again, what they're doing here is testing your ability to use your calculator efficiently. So 56%, remember of means times, 56% button times 800, 448. 5/12 of means times 288. Fraction button, 5/12 times 288, 120. So then we're going to add 448 and 120 together to get 568. Calculate the square root of 14.2, take away 1.3 squared. Okay, with these clever calculators you can type that in exactly as you see it. So the square root is that button, 14.2. We then need to move the cursor from underneath the square root, take away 1.3, and then we've got the x squared button there. So we've typed that in there exactly as it's shown. Press equals. We want that to 2 decimal places. So if we write it down like that first of all, etc., 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 that's going to get us part of the marks. And then for 2 decimal places, that's the first decimal place, that's the second. So you're either going to be writing 2.07 or 2.08. Hopefully you know, you look at the next digit along. If it's 5 or more, it places that closer to 2.08 to 2 dp. Question 4. Calculate the answer when the largest prime number that is a factor of 18 is multiplied by the smallest prime number that is a factor of 21. So 18, factors of 18, you've got 1 and 18, you've got 2 and 9, you've got 3 and 6. and 4 doesn't go into it, and 5 doesn't go into it, so that's it. So the largest prime number that is a factor of 18 is 3. That's a prime number, none of the others are. And then for 21, we have 1 and 21, 2 doesn't go into it, 3 goes into it 7 times, 4 doesn't, 5 doesn't, 6 doesn't, and then we're back to 7. So the smallest prime number that's a factor of 21 is also 3. So when we multiply those together, we get 3 times 3, which is 9. Question 5. Express 23 as a percentage of 78. Well, the way that I would teach this would be to say, right, if you imagine that you had a maths test that was out of 78 and you scored 23, how would I write that on your page? Well, I would write it 23 out of 78. And then to turn it into a percentage, you would multiply by 100. So on our calculator, that's what we'll do. Fraction button, 23 out of 78 times 100. Turn that into a decimal, 29.4871 blah 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 to the nearest whole number percent. That's either 29% or 30%. It's closer to 29%. Question 6, dividing into a ratio. So share £156.80 in the ratio of 7 to 1. That means I need to divide that into 7 parts and 1 part, which is 8 parts. So I need 8 equal parts. So that would be 156.80 divided by 8. So each part is 19.6. So 7 parts would be 7 lots of 19.6. So because it's money, I want £137.20, and the 1 part is going to be £19.60. So you add your ratios together, or the parts of the ratio, to get what you need in total, divide by that, and then share it out. Question 7. An amount of money is shared by 3 people in the ratio of 10, 5, 8. What fraction of this money is given to the person who receives the smallest share? So 2 to 5 to 8. How many parts? 8 and 2 and 5 is 15 parts. So that means the smallest person gets 2 out of the 15. The next one will get 5 out of the 15, and the other 8 out of the 15. So the smallest share will be 2 out of 15. And that's what they want, the answer as a fraction. Question 8. Show clearly whether the following statement is true or false. If you increase a positive number by 10% and then decrease that new value by 10%, you get back to your original number. Well, that seems logical enough, but to test it, what we do is we choose a number to start with. So let's pick, let's pick 100. So if you start with 100, 10% of 100 will be 100 divided by 10. So when you increase it, gives us 100 plus the 10, 110. Now, if we decrease that new value by 10, 10% will be 110 divided by 10, which is 11. So decreasing by gives us 110 less 11, which is 99. So we don't get back to our original number. So the statement is false, and we've shown it's false because we end up with 99 instead of going back to 100. So you've shown that that's the case. So any question like that with a true or false, the best thing to do is to pick a value and see what happens. I chose 100 just because it's easy to work with dividing by tens, but you could have picked 50 or 10 or whatever you wanted to. Question 9, more calculator work. And once again, as I've said several times, these calculators are great because you can write them exactly as you see them. So I'm going to put that in my calculator, and start off I need a fraction. So I press the fraction button. Then I'll put in the top part of the fraction. So it's a square root 146.3 minus 4.6 cubed, and you have a cube button there. So that's spot on. And then the bottom half of the fraction, open bracket, 12.5, take 10.32, close bracket, squared. And you've got the squared button there. Press equals. Right, I'm going to write that all down now before I mess around with my significant figures, because that's showing the examiner then that I have got the right decimal string out of my calculator. So 472398809. Three significant figures. The three most significant figures are that one, because it's in the units, then the tenths, then the hundredths. So it's either going to be 1.47 or 1.48. Just like with decimal places, we look at the next one along. It's less than 5, so it's 1.47 to 3 sig fig. Calculate the reciprocal of 0.54. Reciprocal means either 1 over, or you could write that to the power of -1. So it depends how you were taught to write reciprocal. So either one of those on your calculator, you can either write it as a fraction, 1 over 0.54, to get that, or 0.54, and then you've got the -1 button there, and it'll give you the same thing. So that's 1.851, and you can see they got the dots over them there, so that would be repeating on and on and on and on to one decimal place. It's either going to be 1.8 or 1.9. Next one along is 5 or more, so 1.9 to 1 dp. And then the final question, question 10, highest common factor of 90 and 105, and the lowest common multiple of 90 and 105. And the way that this is taught now is to use a Venn diagram approach. So the first thing you do is you take your 90 and you break it down into product of its prime factors. So that's why this is a grade B. Repeatedly dividing now by prime numbers. So 2 goes into 90 45 times. 2 doesn't go into that, but 5 does. 9 times. 9, 3, and 3. So 90 is 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. Now we do the same for 105. Well, 5 goes into that, and it goes in 21 times. 21 isn't a prime number. 3 goes into it 7 times, and then we stop because then we've got all prime numbers. So that's 3 times 5 times 7. So the Venn diagram bit. We're going to represent 90 in this circle, and we're going to represent 105 in this circle. And prime factors that are common to both go in the intersection in the middle. So 7 isn't common, it's only part of the 105, so that will go there. So I've dealt with that bit. 3 times 5 is in both, so we write that in the intersection. So that's represented all of 105, and now for 90 I've got my 3 and 5, so that leaves me a 2 and a 3 to put in that part. The highest common factor is what you get by multiplying out the numbers in the intersection. So the highest common factor is 3 times 5, which is 15. The lowest common multiple you get by multiplying all of the numbers together. So 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 7. So bring the calculator back in. 2 times 3 times 3 times 5 times 7. Give me 630. So the lowest common multiple is 630, and the highest common factor is 15.